In recent history, I would like to know if you guys could think of a team as disappointing as the Los Angeles Clippers so far. I say so far because they're a team that still does have some promise, even though things might not be looking the best at this very moment. For me, it's really hard to imagine any team that, just let us down the way the Clippers did. And I say us, coming from a basketball fan standpoint. I love to watch good basketball, no way around it, right? I think the Clippers and Lakers duking it out in the NBA playoffs, fighting for Los Angeles, trying to build on their legacies would have just been unbelievable. Remember, the year before this one, Kawhi did the unlikely and led the Toronto Raptors to a championship. But make sure you don't tell that to Pascal Siakam.
A couple of years ago, the Raptors surprisingly won the NBA championship. Then last season, you guys had to live with the expectations of being the defending champion.
What does that even mean?
My point is, Kawhi's got some hardware, and he could have definitely added to his legacy if he was able to take down LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. Guys, when I tell you this team is dysfunctional, it does not tell the half of it. This is a team that's not only dysfunctional, but it hasn't been accountable, and it's also in denial. It's really interesting because the Clippers went out, they talked the talk, but didn't walk the walk. Kind of the opposite of what the other Los Angeles team did. Actions speak louder than words. At the end of the day, we want you to show us what you're going to do. Don't tell us. This video, we're going to talk about how dysfunctional the Clippers are, a lot of their players being in denial, one of those players being Paul George, and we're also going to talk about some of the surprisingly good moves this team has made and the Western Conference in general. Now, before we go any further, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You will not want to miss another Get Like Coop video, and that's facts. Guys, I have been streaming a ton. You will not want to miss a Get Like Coop stream. We stream a ton of different games, one of those games being NBA 2K21 on Next Gen. The link to my stream is going to be in the description below. You'll also find the link to my football channel in that same description. Lastly, if you could go ahead and drop a like on the video, it would be much appreciated. I appreciate all of the support you guys show me. Recently, we've been getting a ton of love on this channel, and I do appreciate that so much.
The answer to the question, does Kawhi have the best shot to stop LeBron, is no. What? The floor is yours.
In the comments below, I want you guys to tell me your biggest threat to the Los Angeles Lakers. For me, the Western Conference is incredibly stacked. Calling out a team right now that's going to be a threat to the Lakers is tough. The Lakers stacked up, addressed a lot of their problems, and now I'd say they're deeper than ever. I would have to say, I feel like the Dallas Mavericks this upcoming season are going to turn a lot of heads. And then there's the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets are a team with a lot of young players who are going to be getting much, much better. We saw the evolution of Jamal Murray in the playoffs, and if you love basketball, you had to love watching Jamal Murray hoop, because we were watching a young, promising player become a bona fide star. He was taking that next step right before our very eyes. Definitely a wonderful thing to see. We saw Michael Porter Jr. step up in big moments. Bol should have a bigger role going forward. The Nuggets are a stacked team. They did lose Jeremy Grant, which is going to be tough. Grant had a great role with the Nuggets. He was a versatile defender, and let's flash back to what I just said. He had a great role. Most importantly, Grant knew his role and what he could bring to the Nuggets team. At times in the NBA, knowing your role can be your best asset. Now, why am I talking so much about the Nuggets, Coop? Well, let's flash back to the Los Angeles Clippers being up 3-1.
4 from downtown. That's something he's been knocking down consistently in this series.
Kawhi, ring it up for Kawhi Leonard. Another 3, and now the Clippers have been hitting those at a great rate.
Kawhi knocks down a 3. Everybody's excited. But the Nuggets go on to win the series. That's tough. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, they both played very poor. Montrezl Harrell's defense, not the best. Let's just say that there's a lot of blame to go around when it comes to the Los Angeles Clippers. Are they willing to accept that blame? That's another story. Marcus Morris talked about the infamous Clippers-Nuggets series today. He had this to say.
Because, at the end of the day, that team wasn't better than us, and we all knew that. To be up and to lose, I think that, that put an extra sting in our mentality. So
at the end of the day, that team wasn't better than us. The Nuggets beat the Clippers 3 straight times. The Clippers had a huge lead to close out the series, but couldn't do it. They had that lead late into the game also. Now, if somebody beats me 3 straight times and wins the series, I'm not going to think that I am better than that team, that my team is better than that team, because they had every opportunity to win, but they just couldn't. If the NBA playoffs was a one and done format, like the NCAA March Madness tournament, and the Clippers lost, I'd be like, oh, well, that's one game. Maybe the Clippers were better than the Nuggets. Let me know who you feel like the better team was down in the comments below. I have to give it to Marcus Morris, though, coming out and speaking his mind on the series. But again, at the end of the day, show us you're better than the Nuggets this upcoming season. I don't want to hear it. You guys had every shot to show us in the playoffs, but you didn't. I feel like the Clippers doing all this talk is becoming something that's all too familiar. Now, the Clippers' problems go far beyond just the Nuggets. At the end of the year, Montrezl Harrell and Paul George had a falling out. Pretty much, Montrezl was upset that Paul George would not accept any blame, wouldn't be held accountable. Well, more of the same is happening right now. Paul George is deflecting blame yet again. And there are a lot of details leaking about the Clippers locker room that we're going to talk about in a second that has everybody upset at Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Let's go ahead and roll the Paul George clip.
The way I was being used, I felt like I was, Doc was trying to play me as like a Ray Allen or like a JJ Redick, like all pin downs, all like, I can do it, but that ain't my game. Right. Like, you know what I mean? I need some flow. I need some mixes of pick and rolls. I need some post ups.
So basically, Paul George says, the way I was being used, I felt like Doc was trying to play me as a Ray Allen or a JJ Redick, all pin downs. I can do it, but it's not my game. I need flow. I need some mixes of pick and rolls, post-ups, different touches. Last season was tough. When I first heard this quote from PG, I was like, you know what, Paul? I'm with you on that. If you were truly being misused, that could definitely lead to you not playing up to your standards. You see, Paul George is a guy that specializes at multiple things. When you get a guy that's good at everything, it can be easy to misuse a player like this. In the regard that they're so good, you use them to complement other players and their deficiencies instead of letting them play to their strengths. Now, I did more research on this topic, and it turns out Kevin O'Connor disagrees with Paul George's comment. He said Paul George finished 33% of his total plays using the pick and roll, which was a career high. The prior high was 25% in OKC. That's very different from a Ray Allen or a JJ Redick style role. Now, if you guys remember, back in OKC, Paul George was looking like an MVP candidate, so I'm not ready to count PG out just yet. He's not long removed from his OKC days. But one thing I would like to see PG do going forward is show more accountability. I tell you guys very often that if you're nothing else, be accountable. People like it when people are accountable. If you make a mistake, own up to it, get better. Simple. It does not define you. So we're about to go on a little tangent about how bad things truly got with the Los Angeles Clippers according to The Athletic. Let's just go ahead and hop into it. So reportedly, Leonard and George were the only players to have their own personal security guards and trainers. Leonard and George had power over the team's practice and travel schedule, leading teammates to believe Leonard canceled multiple practices. Leonard was allowed to live in San Diego and commute from there, which often made him late for team flights. Leonard and George typically didn't speak to the media until at least 45 minutes after games concluded, under the understanding that this would result in their teammates speaking with the media first and for longer, essentially becoming the public voices of the team. Teammates also believed that Leonard and George were able to pick and choose when they played. Not only did they sit out games entirely, but also at times they accepted or declined playing time in the moment. Now, at this point, I honestly do feel for Paul George because I know he's an incredible player and I know he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. But reportedly, the Clippers didn't respect Paul George as much as they respected Kawhi Leonard. While the treatment Leonard received was clearly excessive, his teammates accepted it because Kawhi is a two-time NBA champion and two-time Finals MVP. George got the same treatment. Multiple sources said that George's teammates had a "what have you accomplished in the playoffs" attitude towards him. Now, sometimes everything starts at the top. If Kawhi is going hard, if PG's going hard and accountable, I think the Clippers have a much better chance to beat the Nuggets. Everybody buys in, you know what I'm saying? I remember hearing on a podcast that at one of the first practices LeBron had with Anthony Davis called out LeBron James for messing up and on some things he could do better. And LeBron was receptive and embraced Anthony Davis wanting him to play better. That's the type of relationship and mindset that you have to have if you want to be successful at the highest of levels. I think the Los Angeles Clippers made some great moves this offseason. I think getting Serge Ibaka is major. I think his averages will actually shock a lot of people. I'm not sure so many people knew that Serge Ibaka was somebody that put up 15 points per game last season in not limited minutes, but 27 minutes per game. He shot 39% from the three-point line, which is amazing. He's a great defender. He's somebody that has a relationship with Kawhi Leonard that could go a very long way. Kawhi respects Ibaka. Ibaka respects Kawhi. He's got the mentality, and I'm not sure why more people are not talking about Luke Kennard, who averaged 16 points per game last season, is only 24 years old, shot 40% from the three-point line, and shot 44% from the field. This is a very crafty scorer. Now, he didn't play every game last season, but he still has tons of potential. In the comments below, let me know what you feel like the Clippers' biggest issue is going forward. And I know I didn't talk about every single move they made, but we'll talk about more Clippers in the future. Clicking the video on the screen right now is a great way to support the channel. I'm Get Like Coop, bringing you guys the scoop until our next upload.